Hello, and welcome back to the definitive Starship review series without access to a proper table, where today, unsurprisingly, we are reviewing the USS Nog as voted for overwhelmingly by the community poll. Where, yes, you might notice, screw that refrigerator. That refrigerator, I think it was the refrigerator, made a hum that gave me a headache and was really hard to remove. In fact, you couldn't remove it entirely from the Voyager review, so we're using this slightly dirty table now. We'll work on it. It's a work in progress. But yes, the USS Nog, next to the Voyager J, among the most beloved, no, next to it, I will say the most beloved 32nd century ship. Probably not in least part, as it is the USS Nog, of course, named after the Deep Space Nine character. And I quite like ships like this. I'm not just, acknowledging a late legacy actor, but because it is an Eisenberg-class ship named after the actor who played Nog, Aron Eisenberg. And so not only have you canonized Nog as, someone worthy of having a starship named after them, you've also honored them by inventing some sort of Dr. Eisenberg or whatever, because we're not saying that this ship class is named after the actor Aron Eisenberg. That would be a little bit unusual. In universe, of course, like the in-universe explanation. I just always find that humorous. But before I get too far into the actual review of the ship, and apparently, wow, this table is wobbly, I have to say that I am part of the Eaglemoss affiliate program, which means that if you choose to purchase this model because of this video, there is a link in the description. That is an affiliate link, meaning I will get a 7% commission on the sale of this model. I still purchase them with my own money, and I'm allowed to say whatever the heck I want about these ships, but just be aware there is a monetary incentive for me to tell you to go buy these ships. Anyways, as always, we are going to get into our standard size comparison I do with these models. And the Nog is rather unique in this one because it is the first time I've seen. There's a Facebook group, yes, Facebook, I mentioned I'm a part of. They get a lot of updates on these ships, get a feel for what the community sees about them. And I remember when this released ages ago, there was it was a minority complaining about the size of the Nog. And at the time, these models were definitely smaller than average. I think the price increase was recent. Comparing them, you'd see some shots like this, where you're like, the Nog is basically standard size, why am I paying so much money for it? Which is an interesting comparison to make. I mean, for one, this photo is very misleading. Here we go. You can see the Nog is in fact longer, but I still think it's a worthwhile comparison to make. I've chosen the O-berth as kind of a decently sized, but average, standard size model. And I mean, that's probably closer than some other models. You might say this is more standard size than others. I think that's a fair thing you might draw from this conclusion. A conclusion you might draw from this example. And in fact, let's bring out the Valdor, which is always my go-to example of really big standard size models. And you'll see, yeah, the Valdor's wingspan is about the size as the Nog. That is pretty close in size. You could argue this end bit isn't that substantial to the model, but you could be fair to say that this is more of a standard size model. Now, let me do something weird, if you completely disagree with me and say, no, the Nog is huge. Let me do something a little bit weird. Because, as you know, I tend to use enterprises as standard rulers for these ships. Yeah, we've just jumped up in scale. Here's the Enterprise D. And something that surprised me is the Nog is the same length, just about, if you go from the end of the nacelle to the tip, as the XL Enterprise D. And that is a size jump from things like the standard size. Obviously, it's not as wide. There's much less volume here. But might I remind you, the Discovery class, the Universe collection, is not XL size. It is its own size thing. But yes, this is actually bigger than the special NX or NX Alpha, what's it called? The Columbia class refit of the NX. So, it's larger than some special size models. I don't have most of my special size unpacked. But yeah, if we hop over to the Universe collection, here's Bookship making its debut on the channel. Another poll for review. And yeah, tip to tip, from kind of the most extreme end to the most extreme end, actually the Nog is longer. And there's one where, the Nog, I don't know about more mass, but hey, it's taller, it's longer this way. It's not going to be wider this way, of course, but hey, like, yeah, that's pretty close. And finally, hopping into our Discovery Land collection, yeah, the Vulcan Cruiser, again, that's basically an identical length. This is probably the closest size comparisons, actually. Here we go, in terms of just mass, what you get in the model. That is actually going to be a really close one. And this is a proper, Discovery-sized model. So cleaning house a bit, I will say, when I have all these lined up, the 32nd century ships lined up in a row, the Nog does feel a tad smaller standing next to the others, even though it's not really. I mean, they fluctuate a bit. I think the problem's twofold, and that the Nog is a huge ship in the show. I think it's the biggest of the models that Eaglemoss has made. There's some bigger in the show, but it's among the biggest classes Starfleet's ever made. It's always going to feel like it could be bigger, especially when it's so long. Chop this off, the Nog could be way bigger, and it probably should be a bit bigger. But with this, you can only scale it up so much before this becomes ludicrously long. And yeah, actually, that was the second point. So those are the reasons. I think it might be feeling a tad small, but it's definitely acceptable. When I took it out of the box, I was like, yeah, you know what? That's in about the size range it should be, especially with this big tail. And yeah, that's the size. We've done the size comparisons. Actually, let's get a bit more generic here and do your Eaglemoss stand. Here we go for this is a good one always. I like to do that stand comparison. But yeah, it's one that interestingly is kind of close to those standard sizes, but also holds its weight against some decent sized XLs and the specials. So yeah, it's quite an interesting one. I think it's just a thing of proportions. But of course, we have to get into our next section. The one that everyone seems to like is the quality of the detached bits and how the nacelles get up. Of course, there's no detached bits on the actual body of the Nog. It's purely these nacelles. So let's analyze this stand a bit. You might notice that it's an unusual stand, for the Nog, which you expected. We all wondered how they were going to do this one. The Nog, pretty obviously, just slides in there. If you can push it in, so actually you can see that's entirely just friction. You can get it. It's easy to pop out, and it really stays in there if you just push it in a little bit, which is very nice. The nacelles actually took me a while. I think I had to look up the magazine, just trying to figure out how these fit in. Actually, I think that's the wrong nacelle. Yeah, it took me a while to figure out how these slot in and stay. So the Nog's nacelles, they don't sit like this. They actually sit at an angle, which might not be obvious just from the show alone. But if you look, there's this kind of groove here. The nacelles are going to sit like this on the groove. Here we go, we've got both of them. And you can see in such a way that this pointy bit is on the inside. Usually I think they put the nacelles in the box in a fairly obvious way, but this is how you differentiate which nacelle is which. So that's kind of the angle. You can see it slots down in here, and this is going to stop it from falling off, this little plastic hook right there. The way you tell how far forward it goes is if you basically slide it in like this, so you put the back in and pull it back, eventually it's going to get caught on this bit right here. You can see this bit right here is going to get caught on the plastic right there, and that is where the nacelles bit sit. Which I'd like to point out an amendum. You can check the comments of my Voyager J video. There is actually a way to guarantee the nacelles of the Voyager J do sit in the correct position. I just didn't realize it till after I had already edited the video and set it to upload. But yes, for the Nog, both the nacelles, that is how you line them up. That is how they sit. And then once they are actually on the stand, you probably noticed as I was messing around that I kind of hit them, they'd fall off. They are looser and that they're not really being gripped, but as display models, this isn't going to fall down. Even if you live in an earthquake zone, Yeah, whatever magnitude earthquake that was. Actually, you know what? How long until both of these fall off? Okay, the actual ship fell off before the nacelles. So it's secure enough. It's mostly because working on such a small space. I'm going to bump it. Yeah, if you're moving the stand around, these nacelles are going to fall off. But I think the way this works, this actually has one of the best floating nacelles feelings I've gotten from any of these models. You probably could build something transparent plastic that actually supports them, but I think this is good enough. Like it feels more it feels more like floating nacelles than some of the other ones. Like, yeah, you can see little hooks, but it shows off the nacelles quite nicely, and it has a bonus of at most angles hiding a lot of this plastic bit, which sure, it's transparent. You can see the Nog through. There's not a lot of detail on that spike, but it also hides that stand there. So I think it's quite well done. And again, how else would you do it? I actually think I'm going to hop straight into detailing for the Nog. So we're going to take a look at the nacelles first. You can see, I think, a pretty standard 32nd century Discovery nacelle. You've got, this feels very classic Discovery to me, this little bit here. But like, yeah, that's a Starfleet nacelle. You got the Nog's registry. I can't read that on my viewfinder, but yeah, a lot of they've done real well with these small registries and these Starfleet insignias on these huge scale ships with smaller models. So is it a small scale or a big scale? I think it's a small scale. I don't know which way it goes around, but huge ships, this size Eaglemoss model. You've got the nacelle glow on both sides here, just a little blue light thing. And then, yeah, it's a pretty basic Aztec to weathery 32nd century style. And yeah, it's just this little bump and a very, very traditional Discovery style Bassard collectors. I'm not actually sure what those three little bits are. And as always, the two nacelles are identical, simply mirrored. Moving on to the ship itself, it reminds me a lot, actually, from memory, of the ship from Wall-E, like the by and large colony ship. I really love this general feel. This, and it's another model. I think it's issue 16. They haven't released it yet. This style of one of the newer kind of general design philosophies that have cropped up, between Picard and Discovery Season 3. I really like this style, where you've got kind of a main body bit up here. I guess you'd call this the sort of primary hull-ish, secondary hull-ish, and just this long spike covered. You see the black bits have got windowing. You've got loads of yellow windowing all around the black. And then in here, it's kind of differentiated with these lines, which is quite interesting. I don't think those windows are indented, which is actually good because you don't notice window misalignment when they're not indented, and window misalignment always happens, I think, on this model even. If you look at just some of the things that are on this side, like kind of in a groove or whatever, but you don't really notice it because it's not indented. You've also got little more registry, USS Nog, even United Federation of Planets in real tiny writing there. And yeah, just a lot of black highlights down on the bottom of this tail. In here, almost like, I don't know, nostril gill feeling type things. What I would assume is a phaser ship with, again, USS Nog in real tiny lettering, NCC 325077. I can read that in real life. Not on my viewfinder, though. And then moving up to the primary hull, again, USS Nog, just a lot of this weathering. The white bits, actually, you do have the red insignia kind of going around here. But it's interesting that the white bits are rather plain, actually pinstriping here too, but all the detailing comes from that weathered Aztecing look. But I think the fact that you've got this black, just the right enough of black in just the right places to really highlight it and make the ship look interesting, and not like we were talking with the Excelsior in the Voyager J video, just a dull, empty surface that looks bad. Up here, I love this little weird indenting. You've got slightly down from this white surface and this weird fin uppy thing. It's just a very lovely design, and a completely new Starfleet lineage that, of course, probably goes backwards from here, but it's new for us, the audience, with more of those little divot scales, whatever, and windowing, just to really see, like, these are huge ships, which I really love for the 32nd century. You've got this odd, a little odd textured as well, kind of grid pattern. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be, if it's some sort of window deflector? Ooh, it could be some sort of futuristic deflector. I don't know, but it is interesting. Sensor panel. I'd love to get in and, a look at the inside of this ship if we can focus. There we go. And just, it's kind of more interesting, this top bit, with slightly more interesting curves and divots. This big fin bit up here. The little, I don't know, just little bits that jut out right down there. And yeah, both sides of these ship are symmetrical. There are a few little problems with my model specifically, just some specs up here that look like they won't be permanent on everyone's. They'd kind of vary. I noticed a little after I got this model, let's see, yeah, right there, there's a little bump, I think a flaw in the metal, which I was hard to find. Once I see it, I can obviously see it, and like I can't unsee it. It actually had disappeared from me in like the days since I found it. But you think, okay, I'll just turn it around. But on this side, yeah, up here, there's some little bits that, I don't know, chips didn't get white paint. Whatever, I don't know. As always, I've said before, you can contact Eaglemoss. By phone tends to be better, because by phone they don't ask you to return the model. And they'll just give you a new one. Usually you don't even have to, as I said, return this one. You get 2 Nogs. It's all right, though, for me. In fact, I actually emailed them about a problem once with a small model, and they asked me to return it, and I'm like, what? Like, you never asked me. Yeah, fine, I'll just buy it later. And then, like, a month later, they sent me the model anyway, even though I didn't return the other one that was wrong. So, yeah, it's interesting how that works, but hey, it's how we get duplicate ships. And then looking at this fin bit as well, I forgot to point out this little, I guess, fins on the bit that juts out. You can see just an interesting divot up there. And some more just interesting geometry, these cuts in, these indents, and yeah, it's just a lovely little design that slots very well into Starfleet. It's drastically different, probably one of the most unique designs we've ever seen, but surrounded by, those other evolved Federation ships of evolutions and lineages we have seen, like the Voyager or the Defiant lineage, the Enterprise lineage. But the such recognizable pinstriping, livery, where was it on the nacelles? This little red bit that I keep saying often reminds me of the Bajoran symbol right there. Just such recognizably Federation specifics on this hull. It just instantly slots in as, yes, Starfleet built this. And as I said, I adore this era of Star Trek and Starfleet ship design, rather, the 32nd century. That is going to be it for this model. Oh, no, the bit I always forget. Composition. It can be hard for me to tell composition sometimes on these models, and this is one of them. I think this bottom bit, so you can kind of see this groove that goes along here, what I'd call the secondary hull in this little bit that juts out. Yeah, that's metal, actually. So you can hear, this is the metal bottom, this is the plastic top. I'm pretty sure, and the temperature-wise as well. I think everything else up here is plastic, sounds pretty hollow. It's got a decent weight, maybe like a smidge on the lighter side for its scale, but I don't pick it up and think it's light. It's a lighter for this scale of Eaglemoss, I think, but not light. And these nacelles, of course, are just plastic. But yeah, there we go. I remembered it for once. I keep thinking I need to put a sticky note on the camera that just says, like, composition. I forgot to read the magazine before this as well, but hey, let's hope there wasn't anything important in there. And so then, I think that is it for the Nog. Remember that next week's review, there will be another poll in the community tab here, the descriptions, or just channel community tab, to vote on next week's review. And now that the Nog and Voyager J are out of the way, everyone is up for grabs. I have no idea where it's going to go, honestly, but hey, that's the fun of it, isn't it? If you have any questions about this model specifically, just ask me in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. If you want me to review a specific model, other than what's on that poll, just ask me and I will get to it as soon as I can. I own over half of the models still, and ever increasing now that I've got a proper paying job. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.